They're watching me. If anything happens, tell the FBI about the folder in my closet. Those words lingered in the air, carried through a phone line that would soon fall silent. The moment it ended, a normal evening in Tucson, Arizona, fractured into a nightmare that would grip not just a family, but the entire country. Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie, had vanished, and the last thing she said left a question burning in every heart that heard it. What did she know, and who was after her? It began like any other weekend in the Catalina foothills, a quiet stretch of Tucson where homes sit behind wrought iron gates, the desert mountains painting the horizon in muted purples and golds. Nancy Guthrie's house was neat, tidy, unremarkable in its everyday calm, until that calm shattered. It was Saturday, January 31st, 2026. Around 9:30 p.m., Nancy spoke her last words, a cryptic warning that no one could yet comprehend. By Sunday morning, she was gone, leaving a home that would become a crime scene, a family in shock, and a story that would dominate headlines for weeks. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The public, of course, knew Savannah Guthrie as the composed, confident face of morning news. But behind the camera, there was a daughter, a family, and now, a crisis so deeply personal that it pierced every polished broadcast moment. Imagine watching your parent vanish into thin air, leaving nothing but questions, suspicion, and fear. How do you reconcile the world you live in with the terror you suddenly face? That's the reality Savannah faced, and it's why millions of her fans could not look away. The scene at the house was unsettling. Early Sunday morning, family members, expecting Nancy for church, arrived to find her absence. A subtle unease quickly became dread as they noticed the signs: doors slightly ajar, items out of place, and an unnerving silence that suggested more than just a missed appointment. The local sheriff, Chris Nanos, would later reveal that Nancy was last seen Saturday night between 9:30 and 9:45 p.m., a short window of time that would become the focus of a massive investigation. Her disappearance wasn't just unexpected, it was alarming, and it triggered immediate action. Inside the home, investigators quickly uncovered troubling evidence. A ransom note was discovered, its contents carefully worded, a puzzle left for authorities to decipher. Signs of a struggle suggested that this was no ordinary disappearance. Someone had violated the sanctuary of Nancy's home, leaving behind questions about motive, opportunity, and danger. The FBI, recognizing the gravity of the situation, became involved swiftly, indicating that this was more than a local crime. It had national implications. Kidnapping theories circulated, and the public grappled with the idea that someone connected to a household so familiar could vanish without a trace. Think about that for a moment. A seemingly ordinary home, a mother quietly living her life, and suddenly, everything is wrong. The narrative of safety, of predictability, collapses. And then there's the phone call, the last words, spoken with urgency, fear, and a hint of desperation. They're watching me. If anything happens, tell the FBI about the folder in my closet. The mind reels. What was in that folder? What had Nancy discovered? And who did she fear? For the neighbors, the community, and even casual viewers of Savannah Guthrie's morning show, the story took on a surreal quality. Headlines screamed of a high-profile disappearance, of potential ransom, of a crime scene turned thriller. But beyond the news, there were the human elements. The fear in the eyes of family members, the silence of a home that should have been filled with warmth, and the haunting knowledge that someone, somewhere, knew more than they were willing to reveal. Sheriff Chris Nanos, a seasoned law enforcement officer, described the situation with gravity in his press briefing on the evening of February 1st. He explained that the circumstances pointed toward abduction, not voluntary disappearance. She didn't walk from there. She didn't go willingly, he said. Words that resonated with chilling clarity. Every lead, every detail, every shred of evidence became a thread in a rapidly unfolding mystery that no one, not even those closest to Nancy, fully understood. The public's fascination with this story is understandable. There's a universal fear embedded in the narrative. A parent, a child, a seemingly safe home invaded. And the mystery itself was compounded by the cryptic nature of Nancy's last communication. The folder she referenced was unknown, its contents hidden, but it became the linchpin around which speculation, fear, and urgency revolved. Imagine for a moment being Savannah Guthrie, receiving the news that your mother had disappeared. A parent you relied on, a mother you trusted, suddenly gone. You are thrust into a vortex of law enforcement briefings, media inquiries, and private grief. Questions rush in faster than answers. Did someone target her specifically? Was this premeditated? Was it random? Every possibility seems both plausible and horrifying. And the folder, what could it contain? Perhaps documents, perhaps evidence, perhaps secrets that someone would kill to keep hidden. In true dramatic irony, the audience knows just enough to be terrified, but the truth remains tantalizingly out of reach. The story is no longer just about disappearance. It's about hidden knowledge, danger lurking unseen, and the fear that what was safe yesterday could be destroyed in an instant. As the investigation progressed, details emerged that deepened the mystery. Friends and neighbors described Nancy as meticulous, careful, yet warm, a woman who left no stone unturned in her personal affairs. Yet even with her careful nature, she found herself in a situation that would baffle authorities. The ransom note raised more questions than it answered, leaving law enforcement and the public alike to speculate about the identity of the perpetrators and the motives behind the abduction. Social media buzzed. Savannah Guthrie's fans, normally focused on morning show segments, now found themselves swept into a real-life thriller. Comment threads debated theories, shared news updates, and speculated endlessly about the folder Nancy had mentioned. Headlines called it a kidnapping. Some labeled it a mystery. Others whispered about darker conspiracies. But amidst all the noise, the fundamental truth remained. Nancy Guthrie was missing, and her last words hinted at a danger that was both imminent and personal. The gravity of the situation was underscored by law enforcement's careful handling of the investigation. Sheriff Nanos's team, alongside federal agents, worked tirelessly to piece together Nancy's final movements. Surveillance footage, digital footprints, and witness statements were analyzed in painstaking detail. Yet the folder, the cryptic message, remained central. A mysterious artifact that may hold the key to understanding what truly happened. Consider this. In countless missing person cases, it is often the small, overlooked details that crack the case. A misdialed phone call, a fleeting shadow on a security camera, a message left in haste. For Nancy Guthrie, her final words were a warning, a breadcrumb for investigators, and a heart-stopping alert to her family. The folder in her closet was not just a collection of papers. It was potentially the evidence that could reveal the why, the how, and the who behind her disappearance. The story captured hearts because it blends the familiar with the terrifying. A public figure, a loving mother, a home that should have been a refuge, all colliding with the inexplicable. The audience is forced to confront the fragility of safety, the unpredictability of human behavior, and the urgent, relentless search for answers. It's a narrative that grips attention, compelling viewers to follow every development, every clue, every revelation. And so, as we dive into this story, one question dominates everything. What happened after Nancy Guthrie's final phone call? The answer is buried beneath layers of evidence, speculation, and intrigue, and uncovering it will take us into the heart of a mystery that no one expected. Each chapter will reveal new details, new twists, and new shocks. The story is not just about a disappearance. It is about secrets, threats, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth in the face of danger. By the end of this journey, we will not only understand what happened to Nancy Guthrie, but we will see how a single moment, a single call, can set off a chain of events that changes lives forever. But for now, the questions remain, sharp and unyielding. What did Nancy know? Who was watching her? And what lies within the folder she referenced so urgently? But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What could possibly drive a mother to utter the words, "They're watching me"? If anything happens, tell the FBI about the folder in my closet, and then disappear into thin air? It's the kind of sentence that freezes your blood, the kind that instantly transforms ordinary life into a nightmare. For Nancy Guthrie, it wasn't hyperbole. Something had her scared. Something had her terrified enough to leave a cryptic warning to anyone who might listen. But who was she warning and why? That night, January 31st, 2026, began like most others for Nancy. The Tucson evening was cool, the desert winds rustling through the mesquite trees outside her Catalina foothills home. She had finished dinner, tidied the kitchen, and was preparing for a quiet evening alone. Her routines were meticulous. Friends described her as organized, methodical, someone who kept track of everything from household bills to family schedules. But that night, something felt off. She made one phone call that would become the centerpiece of an unfolding mystery. The phone rang, and the voice on the other end picked up. There was urgency, but also hesitation in Nancy's tone. You could hear it if you listened carefully in the transcripts released later by law enforcement, a wavering undercurrent of fear. She spoke quickly, almost as if she were afraid of being overheard. "They're watching me," she said, and in those 5 words, the ordinary life she had lived vanished. The words themselves are chilling because they are vague yet definitive. Who is they? What were they watching for? Were they after her, or were they observing something else entirely? The audience doesn't know. Her family, at the time, didn't know. And investigators would spend days, then weeks, trying to untangle the threads of what she might have been referring to. She mentioned the folder in her closet, an object that would become almost mythical in the context of this case. What could be so important, so dangerous, that she felt compelled to reference it in her final words? The possibilities are almost endless. Documents exposing someone, evidence of criminal activity, personal secrets she feared would be weaponized against her. And the fact that she instructed the listener to contact the FBI if anything happened suggests she feared imminent danger. She wasn't just worried. She was aware of a threat that could be deadly. In the days that followed, investigators pieced together the timeline of that night. Nancy was last seen between 9:30 p.m. and 9:45 p.m. Saturday, January 31st. Surveillance footage from nearby homes shows no unusual traffic, no cars lingering outside. Neighbors reported nothing suspicious. And yet, within that 15-minute window, she vanished. There were no eyewitnesses to her leaving, no signs of her taking her car, and no evidence she intended to disappear voluntarily. Sheriff Chris Nanos would later confirm, she didn't walk from there. She didn't go willingly. Think about that for a moment. 15 minutes, one phone call, and a life gone. What happened in that short window? Did she leave with someone? Was she taken forcibly? Or was there something more complex at play? A calculated plan by someone who had watched her movements for days, perhaps weeks? The terror of the unknown is part of what makes this story grip so tightly. It's not just a disappearance. It's a puzzle, and the pieces are terrifyingly incomplete. The phone call itself became a key focus. Investigators reviewed the call logs, noting the time and duration. They interviewed anyone who might have been on the line with her or nearby at the time. But the mystery of the folder loomed large. The contents were unknown, but law enforcement believed it held information critical to understanding why Nancy was targeted. It wasn't a casual reference. It was a precise instruction, an implicit warning. Audience, pause for a moment. Imagine being in Savannah Guthrie's shoes, watching your mother vanish after leaving a warning so cryptic it's almost cinematic. You can feel the panic, the confusion, the helplessness. How do you reconcile the ordinary life you've known with the stark reality that someone you love is now in danger? And how do you process a clue so cryptic? It could mean almost anything. The emotional weight is suffocating. Family members later recounted the night of the disappearance. They described the ordinary, Nancy's preparation for a quiet evening, a call to a friend or confidant, and then the extraordinary, the realization the next morning that she was gone. Her absence was discovered when she missed church. What should have been a routine Sunday turned into a waking nightmare. The family arrived at the house around 11 a.m., only to find it eerily silent, doors slightly ajar, and signs that something had gone terribly wrong. Inside, the scene was unsettling. Law enforcement found items out of place, signs of a struggle, and, most notably, a ransom note. Its contents, while partially redacted in public reports to avoid compromising leads, hinted at premeditation and a targeted approach. Whoever had taken Nancy had planned this meticulously. They wanted something from her, something they believed she possessed, or they wanted to intimidate her. And yet, The phone call preceded all of this. It was almost as if Nancy had known the danger before anyone else. Her warning about the folder suggests she anticipated the worst, that she understood the stakes, and that she hoped someone would act on her instructions if she did not survive. There is a layer of dread in that awareness, the kind that grips you because it means the victim isn't passive. They are aware, alert, and trying to create a safety net against unknown threats. Investigators worked tirelessly to trace every possible lead from that phone call. Who answered? Was it a family member, a friend, a colleague? What did they do with the information she provided? Did they immediately contact authorities? The answers are murky. Public reports confirm that law enforcement was involved swiftly, but there was confusion, frustration, and an ever-growing sense of urgency. Every moment mattered. Every second without action could be critical.